9. Michelle Combs. Shortly before midnight one evening in 2018, Oklahoma City police responded to a call about an intoxicated person being disruptive at a local bar. Upon arriving, a security guard directed officers to 31-year-old Michelle Combs, who was allegedly being combative with fellow patrons and had refused to leave after being told to do so by staff. A responding officer noted in a report that Combs seemed intoxicated and struggled to provide her ID. According to the report, she also nearly fell into a vehicle when she was asked to stand up. Combs was arrested for public intoxication and was subsequently taken to the local jail. During the drive, she began reciting Bible verses and allegedly offered the transporting officer a certain favor if he let her go. Obviously, he didn't take her up on it, but the local news was evidently happy to report about the offer. 8. Cross-country Kiwi pursuit. In what some media outlets dubbed the world's longest police chase ever, a driver led law enforcement on a nearly 447-mile high-speed pursuit throughout New Zealand's southern island in 2016. Officers first tried to pull over the 20-year-old rogue motorist at around 1 a.m. near the city of Nelson, but he refused. Instead, he took off in his blue Subaru. Police tried to chase after the suspect, but they ended up having to abandon the pursuit 3 times due to safety concerns. After failing to catch him near Nelson, they made another attempt in Christchurch, only to give up and try for a 3rd time. One onlooker told news outlet NZ Stuff that the Subaru sped by so quickly that they knew the police would have no chance of catching up, but the driver eventually ditched the vehicle and attempted to flee on foot. An arrest was then finally made in Waikuaiti at 5 p.m., 16 hours after the first pursuit began. According to police, the suspect was charged with failing to stop for police and driving while disqualified, but he'll likely face more charges as the case progresses in court. 7. Colton Harris Moore. Better known as the Barefoot Bandit for committing his crimes barefoot, Colton Harris Moore was just a kid when he first began breaking into vacation homes and living in the forest for days at a time due to an alleged lack of parental guidance at home. He accrued a lengthy criminal record at a young age, with each conviction being accompanied by community service or a short stay at a juvenile detention center. His crimes began mostly as petty thefts, but he evolved into more severe acts over time. Moore became a fugitive from justice in 2008 when he walked out of a halfway house to avoid serving a 3-year sentence. It would have been his first experience with serving a substantial amount of time for his ever-expanding list of crimes, which would grow to include dozens of suspected thefts in Washington, Idaho, and Canada. In his efforts to evade the law, Moore stole every method of transportation imaginable: bicycles, cars, speedboats, and even 2 planes, despite having no flying experience. He tried flying his first stolen Cessna after reading manuals on how to pilot small aircraft, and he ended up crashing it. Luckily for him though, he survived. In 2010, Moore stole a 2nd plane in Bloomington, Indiana. He somehow managed to fly it to the Bahamas, where he survived another rough landing and proceeded to rob several properties. Meanwhile, a federal judge issued an indictment against him for a slew of crimes. And the FBI offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to his capture. Moore was finally arrested about a week later after police shot out the engine of a stolen motorboat he was driving. He was then extradited to the US, where he pleaded guilty to 7 counts and received a prison sentence of more than 7 years. The young offender was paroled in 2016 and got a job doing clerical work for his defense lawyer. And since then, he's managed to stay largely out of news headlines, which likely means that he's also been staying out of trouble. He briefly ran a blog voicing his support for Donald Trump, but eventually it was taken down, likely due to backlash. 6. James Matt French. In March of 2023, Sergeant Chris Skinner of the Oklahoma City Police Department pulled over a captain from the same agency named James Matt French on suspicion of driving while intoxicated. Skinner reportedly enacted the traffic stop at around 1:30 a.m. after noticing that French's vehicle appeared to be swerving, speeding, and failing to use turn signals. According to a report, French's eyes were watery and his speech was slurred. Body cam footage of the encounter also showed French telling officers that he was the police captain and repeatedly asking one of the officers to turn off his camera. In fact, he even commanded the officer to turn the device off. Sergeant Skinner refused to obey the order despite French's repeated requests, which eventually took an overtone of sheer beggary. Then, at one point during the video, Skinner said, "I don't care if you're a gangbanger or the President of the United States." And he went on to point out that if he gave French special treatment, it would reflect poorly upon his own integrity as a police officer. After being asked several times about how much he had to drink, French eventually admitted to having 3 or 4 beers while playing poker. He also acknowledged that it wasn't smart for him to get behind the wheel, but claimed he was only coming from a few blocks away. French continued asking Skinner to turn off his body cam while performing poorly on a field sobriety test. And when simply saying no failed to get the captain to stop asking, Skinner reminded him that it was the department's policy for officers to keep their cameras on. Still though, French persisted, at which point Skinner made it clear that he planned to stand by the oath he took to uphold the law. Towards the end of the footage, French asked Skinner if he was going to be arrested. Skinner replied with a simple yes and took the captain into custody on a DUI charge. And according to the most recent update on the case, French was on administrative leave pending the results of an internal investigation. 5. Elisa Brajaterovich. Some people go out of their way not to avoid their own arrest, but to prevent a loved one from being arrested. Such was the case for a fit female NYPD officer from the Bronx named Elisa Brajaterovich, who was accused of trying to stop detectives from searching her boyfriend in April 2023. According to police, the 33-year-old and her beau were pulled over on a Saturday night. Elisa allegedly tried to use her status as a cop to get them off the hook, and she caused a scene when it didn't work. Following the incident, the New York Post reported that the couple met while working out at a gym. A source told the news outlet that Elisa's colleagues warned her to stay away from her partner because he was under investigation as a suspected drug dealer. In fact, detectives had reportedly been keeping an eye on the man for some time, but Elisa apparently didn't listen, and she's now suspected of trying to prevent her unnamed boyfriend from getting in trouble on the night they were pulled over. According to police, the cops who pulled the pair over were planning to search their vehicle due to Elisa's boyfriend's suspected status as a major player in the drug trade. The off-duty officer immediately attempted to intervene, even before the officers who were conducting the stop knew who she was. A source later claimed that Elisa gave the cops a hard time and refused to follow their commands, to the point where they were compelled to call for backup assistance. As a result, her guns were taken away and she was reassigned to desk duty pending the outcome of an investigation. She'd been on the force for 11 years when the controversy first made headlines. Ironically, Elisa's boyfriend was let go after the traffic stop, but her behavior was so suspicious that it landed her in hot water. It's unclear whether the officers who pulled the couple over ended up searching their vehicle, or if they were too distracted by Elisa's alleged tantrum to stick to the original plan. 4. Brent Christopher Heath. In today's Florida Man installment, a 40-year-old Palm Coast resident named Brent Christopher Heath allegedly faked a heart attack in an attempt to get out of being arrested on suspicion of several drug-related counts. The incident in question happened during what was meant to be a routine traffic stop in August 2023. According to a police report, a Flagler County deputy enacted the stop just after midnight. Then, after continuing to drive despite the deputy sounding his lights and sirens for more than a minute, Heath finally pulled over. He allegedly claimed that he failed to stop immediately because his back windows were too dark to see out of, and he didn't notice he was being pulled over. The deputy smelled the distinct odor of marijuana emanating from the vehicle and established that he had probable cause to search the car. He then proceeded to find THC and fentanyl in the vehicle. As a 29-time convicted felon, Heath is no stranger to the law. In fact, he'd been released from federal prison just months before the traffic stop. But he was apparently in no mood to be arrested that day, and at some point during the conversation he claimed he was having a heart attack. Unable to determine whether the suspect was suffering from a legitimate medical emergency, deputies summoned an ambulance to the scene. Heath was taken to a nearby hospital, but it didn't spare him from facing the legal consequences of his alleged crimes. After being medically cleared, he was booked into custody on multiple drug possession and trafficking-related counts. And his case appears to be ongoing. 3. David Flores. After identifying a man named David Flores as the top suspect in a shooting that occurred months earlier, a team from the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department went to his home in Albuquerque in August 2023 and tried to arrest him. But Flores had other ideas, none of which included being voluntarily taken into custody. He allegedly refused to leave the residence, resulting in an hours-long standoff with a SWAT team. According to the Bernalillo County District Attorney, Flores was seen wearing traditional male clothing inside the apartment, but when he finally exited the building, he appeared to be wearing a long-haired wig, makeup, and feminine clothing. He'd also allegedly taken measures to cover up his tattoos as part of his effort to disguise himself. In a statement, the DA claimed that Flores even tried pretending to be a different person, telling the SWAT team that the real suspect was still inside the building. As you've likely already guessed though, the ruse didn't work, and Flores was taken into custody on one count of aggravated assault with a firearm and failing to appear in court for a separate drug-related case. 2. Drunk driver tries blaming dog. Nobody likes being pulled over by the police, and on some level, it may even be natural for a driver to automatically start trying to think of excuses they might use to try talking their way out of an arrest or a ticket. And it's likely fair to assume that any seasoned police officer has heard every excuse in the book. But one Colorado driver pulled a first when he tried switching places with his dog during a traffic stop in 2023. According to a report, the motorist was pulled over in Springfield after an officer observed the vehicle traveling at 52 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. In a statement, the Springfield Police Department wrote that the driver tried to switch places with his dog, who was in the passenger seat, as the arresting officer approached the vehicle and watched the entire time. The driver then exited the vehicle from the passenger side and told the officer that he wasn't driving. He allegedly showed clear signs of intoxication and attempted to run away when the officer asked how much he'd had to drink that evening. But the suspect made it just 60 feet on foot before being taken down. According to the police department, the man had gotten lost in Springfield while driving between two other cities. In addition to being arrested on suspicion of driving while intoxicated, he had 2 active warrants out for his arrest in connection to an unrelated case. After being medically cleared, he was booked into custody on multiple charges, including driving under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, driving under suspension, driving while ability impaired, speeding 20 to 24 miles per hour over the speed limit, and resisting arrest. And according to a Facebook post, the dog was let off with a warning and was placed into the custody of a trusted acquaintance. 1. Lydia Elizabeth Badillo. During a routine traffic stop in April 2023, Texas State Police caught a driver trying to smuggle 2 Mexican women into the United States. According to a report, troopers in Jim Hogg County pulled over a gold Chevy Malibu being driven by a woman named Lydia Elizabeth Badillo. Bodycam footage of the conversation showed Badillo saying that she was heading out for drinks with the 2 women, who she claimed were her friends. As a trooper ran the trio's driver's licenses through the system, Badillo allegedly tried to distract him by flirting with him. She then told the trooper that she was looking at his eyes because he was pretty handsome, but it wasn't enough to derail him from the task at hand. Badillo, a Mexican national living in the US, eventually admitted to picking up the two women at a people smuggling stash house in the city of Mission. She also admitted to trying to smuggle them into the country. According to police, both of the suspects' passengers were migrants from El Salvador who were attempting to pass through the border checkpoint using fake driver's licenses. But they were caught, and Badillo was charged with human smuggling. Would you rather make the news for saying or doing something embarrassing in a panicked attempt to avoid being arrested, or for blatantly disrespecting a cop who was trying to be patient with you even when he didn't have to be? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.